Hey Greg.
Yes?
What comes to town every year, gets on my nerves, and ruins all my stuff?
My mother-in-law?
Wildfires.
Okay. Yeah,
So it's one thing that LA does right. It's a horror that you can depend on happening every year. Mm-hmm. And there's so many that have happened, big and small, but we're just going to talk about some of the biggest and the most important ones.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
How
Greg.
can I prevent forest fires?
Only you.
Proceed.
So the first big fire in LA history, we've talked about it a little bit before. It was on October 3rd, 1933, in a little place I like to call Griffith Park.
The curse of the park. Griffith Park.
This is... Every episode since that episode has just been proof supporting that Griffith Park is cursed.
Yep.
So it was the heart of the Depression at the time. There were 3,780 workers that were clearing brush in the mineral wells area of the park as part of a New Deal program to get the economy going again. So on this day, it was 100 degrees. And then at around 2 p.m., a man in a dark suit was seen running away from near the golf course clubhouse, where people found. They said, "Where are you going?" And
that's hard to get to too. For fire trucks to get to, that's really hard.
God. They found a little fire started in a pile of dead leaves, which was probably just like someone threw out a cigarette and it started this fire. Some of the workers, they were ordered to go over to it and stamp it out with shovels.
Okay.
So not surprisingly, beating a fire with shovels didn't put it out, and it started to spread. So then more workers who were being paid 40 cents a day, mind you,
got bigger shovels. They got snow shovels.
What else we got? We got rakes. They were
hit it with wood.
They were ordered to try to stop the fire, and the ones that refused were threatened to be fired. So I'm sure the foremen were having fun with that one.
Oh boy.
So the workers who had no experience at all in firefighting, obviously, they decided that fighting the fire with shovels wasn't working. Mm-hmm. So why don't they fight fire with fire? So they started lighting backfires around the area to prevent the original flare from spreading any further. And then at 3 p.m., the Santa Ana winds shifted and the fire spread through the entire canyon that they were in. And this thing got very scary now. So the fire started eating its way around the entire canyon. The only way out of it was to climb to the top of the hill and get to the other, get into Hollywood.
Yeah.
And not everyone made it. Survivors said that you could trace the path of the fire by listening to the screams as people all around you were burning to death.
Wow.
The whole canyon was just echoing with screams, and in all 29 people were killed, 150 were injured, making it the deadliest fire in LA history and the second deadliest in the US. All the charred bodies they found were facing towards the summit with their arms outstretched to try to get to the top.
God.
Did we mention that Griffith Park is cursed? When the real firefighters showed up, they managed to limit the extent of the damage to just 47 acres, but they found that most of the victims weren't killed by the original fire, but by the backfires that they were all setting to fight it. So not only were these workers being paid 40 cents a day, the courts decided that the workers who got injured from this weren't entitled to workers' comp. Mm-hmm. It was the New Deal. Yeah. A few years later, President Roosevelt came to visit to unveil a bronze statue to commemorate the victims. But then in 1938, a huge flood washed it away. Again, did we mention that Griffith Park is cursed? So then in recent years, they planted 29 trees there in honor of the 29 that were killed. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, that's just 29 more trees that can burn again. So it was ruled an arson, but they never found who did it. The LA Times blamed it on communists, but the man running away in the dark suit was never found. So some other minor major wildfires. In 1938, 24 square miles of the Santa Monica Mountains burned after a rancher threw out some ashes. Mm-hmm. In 1961, a fire in Beechwood Canyon destroyed 24 homes before 67-mile-per-hour winds blew it towards the observatory, and it would have destroyed it, but all the firefighters put huge effort into protecting it. Yeah. In 1961 as well, 55-mile-per-hour winds blew a fire from Bel Air into Brentwood. It ended up destroying 484 homes, 21 buildings, over 6,090 acres were burned, while at the same time there was a second fire burning in Benedict Canyon. And at the same time there was a third fire burning in Woodland Hills. The next really historic fire was in 1970 as part of what became known as the California Fire Siege. So on September 25th, 1970, my birthday, After almost 200 days of the city not receiving any rain, 3 separate fires broke out across LA. There was the Clampett fire in Newhall that started by some downed power lines, the Wright fire in Malibu, which started in a garbage dump, and then the Agua Dulce fire in Agua Dulce, which is where Tercio Vasquez would hang out. I think he had something to do with this. It was the lesser of the 3, that one. So the Clampett fire was the biggest, and it got even bigger when, again, 80-mile-per-hour Santa Ana winds kicked in and blew it into Malibu to connect with the Wright fire. So think about that for a second. God. It blew 20 miles from Santa Clarita through the valley into Malibu, and it destroyed pretty much the West Valley. It burned down Spawn Ranch.
Oh,
when I was
the
doing
Manson
research,
family Spawn Ranch?
When I was doing research, I ended up on like the Manson family blog, and they were talking about like this tragic day for them. So it connected with the Wright fire to become the biggest fire in LA history up to that point. 157,058 acres were burned, 357 homes were destroyed, and 5 people were killed. The fire was so horrible, it led to laws providing for the clearance of brush in the hills and a ban on flammable roofing materials. So the reason that this was during the California fire siege, it was because at the same time that this was happening, there were 2 big fires burning in Ventura County, and then the next day another fire started in San Diego that burned 175,425 acres. So between September and November of this year, there were multiple huge fires burning all over California that destroyed a combined total of 600,000 acres, which is about 937 square miles. And to compare that, Los Angeles City covers 503 square miles. So almost 2 Los Angeleses were destroyed. And then before the next big one hit, there was a steady stream of fire destruction through the years. 1933, another fire in Malibu and Topanga burned 16,516 acres. Destroyed 739 homes and killed 3. October 2007 saw the entire coast from Santa Barbara all the way down to San Diego on fire. 9 dead, 85 injured, 1,500 homes destroyed. LA got it worse there in Santa Clarita and Malibu. The big one was in 2009. There were a lot of fires this year, but this one was the biggest. There were 7 other fires going on in the state at this time, and then a fire broke out in the Angeles National Forest in the La Cañada, Flint Ridge, Sunland, Tujunga area near a ranger station, which is why it got the name the Station Fire.
I was going to ask about that. That was a radio thing. Go ahead.
So over 10,000 homes were evacuated as the fire spread into Pasadena and Glendale. It started August 26th. It wasn't declared 100% contained until October 16th, which means that it burned for almost 2 months straight. 2 firefighters were killed, 89 homes destroyed, 209 structures damaged. It burned 160,557 acres, surpassing the Clampett fire, making it the largest fire in LA history and the 12th largest wildfire in California history. It cost $95 million to fight it. It was an arson fire, but the culprit was never caught. Investigations were launched into why this fire got so bad, and they found that there was a lot of underestimation of like how dangerous this was and hesitation in fighting it, so it let it get out of hand. And there was also a law saying that there couldn't be any water drops at night, so that made things even worse. The law got repealed after this. Yeah, there's been a lot of wildfires in LA history. This is just a tiny number of them. All these fires took place in the fall and usually had the help of their good friend, the Santa Ana winds. And what's worse is that all these places that I just talked about that had all these fires are at just as high a risk of burning today as they were then. And the scary thing is that this entire city is buried under dry brush, that in some areas it hasn't burned in decades, and this has been an especially dry year for us, so it's going to be a fun fall.
Oh, it certainly is. It is. They say it might be the driest year on record since they started doing records, since we became a state in like 1850, and they're looking at the rings on sequoia trees to see like when the last spell was that was just dry, and they said it might be like 1580, like maybe 500 years ago.